I felt like I was standing naked on the side of the internet highway, holding a sign that said, "Look at me." That's how today's guest, Tracy Beavers, describes the uncomfortable but necessary experience of becoming visible online. And if you've ever cringed at the thought of putting yourself out there, you're going to feel seen in this episode. We take a good look at how to grow your audience and your email list without feeling slimy or salesy. Tracy shares how she transitioned from a 25-year corporate sales career to building a thriving online business, the strategies she used to get visible, even as a self-described extrovert who still hated reels, and how you can use small, repeatable actions to build trust and drive growth, whether you're just starting out or you're scaling. With decades of sales, business development, and visibility strategy under her belt, Tracy knows how to grow a business from the ground up and make it feel doable for people who don't love tech or social media. Welcome to the Online Business Launchpad podcast. I'm Trudy Rankin, and I help people who need a flexible work-from-home option grow the online side of their business so that they can earn more, stress less, and have greater freedom in how they live.
We're going to be talking about a topic that is near and dear to my heart because I know that a lot of my listeners and a lot of the people that I work with struggle with this. And we're going to be talking a little bit about how do you grow your audience, your email list, and do it in a way that's building relationships in the process, but not in a slimy, salesy, yucky sort of a way. So, Tracy, thank you so much for being on the podcast and welcome.
Thank you so much, Trudy. I'm excited to finally be here.
It has taken us a while to get this over on. Tracy, I was intrigued when we first got in touch and we started talking back and forth about the sorts of things that you could share to help people as they try to grow their business. And I was a little bit intrigued by your background because actually there's some similarities there. Can you please share with our listeners a little bit about yourself and how you got to be where you are now?
Absolutely. It's a pretty interesting story, but I have a feeling that a lot of people in the audience can relate to it. So I am in Little Rock, Arkansas. I'm a wife. I'm a mom of 2 young adults. We are empty nesters, which kind of blows my mind. The only child that's left at home now is our Labrador, and he gets really sick of me most days because he's the only one here. But my story is having an over 25-year award-winning sales career in corporate, being in sales, marketing, business development. Honestly, Trudy, I never thought I would leave. If you told me that I was going to be an entrepreneur and I was going to build an online business, being a business and sales coach and a visibility strategist, I would have said you had lost your mind. Because growing up, my father was an architect and he worked for himself and he made it look awful, like a grind 24/7. And it never really took off despite his best efforts and all of the work that he put in. And so I said to myself, oh, I am not doing that. So I went to high school, graduated, went to college, graduated, and I am of the generation that when you graduated college, you got the job, a job, any job, but it was the job, and you stayed in that job for 40 years, and then they gave you a retirement party with a gold watch, a cake, and a pension. That's how old I am. So a lot has changed in the million years that I've been on the planet, but I never really thought that I would leave corporate because entrepreneurship just looked really difficult and scary. But what ended up happening to me was about 7 years ago, I'm in a sales role. I have been asked to come over to work for a title insurance company in business development because they wanted to gain market share. So the first year I was there, I grew that company 86% in their market share. And then the second year, we were on track to grow another 38 or something percent. So it was really good. The numbers were really good. And the CEO actually had the nerve to say to me, now he didn't phrase it like this, but this is what he meant. He didn't think I was going to be that successful. And he was going to rewrite the commission structure basically to benefit the company so that I would not make as much money. And I knew being in corporate, I knew I didn't have any control over my time. It's 8 to 5 or 9 to 5 or whatever. You get a 1-hour lunch. You get so much PTO. You only get so much vacation. I knew that. But I thought being in a sales role with a commission structure, you can make as much money as you want, right? Oh,
Yeah.
apparently not. So that was a wake-up call. But years before that, I had little signs that this was not the right fit for me. A few toxic bosses, a few job descriptions that didn't quite feel right, for some frustrations being a working mom. This has been leading up to this final straw moment where I was like, okay. I finally was like, okay, God, I don't know what you're trying to tell me, but I'm getting the picture that this is not where I need to be. But I was afraid. I was afraid to work for myself. And some really good friends of mine said, you should look into being a coach. You're really good at business. You're really good at growing businesses. You're really good at getting to the root of the problem. You're really good in sales and you're really good at marketing. And I was like, coach? Because I'm in Arkansas and we're slow on the trend. All the trends. It doesn't matter if it's food, fashion, music, whatever, business. And I looked at them and I'm like, that's a thing. And they're like, yeah, that's a thing. I was like, never heard of that in my life. So turns out coaching is a thing. And so I thought, okay, I can do this. I'll try it. But I did not quit my full-time job because at the time the kids were high school and middle school, sports, proms, cars, college. And my husband would have been like, you're going to do what? You're going to quit your six-figure job and we're going to go do, yeah. He was like, no. I said, I'll build this alongside my corporate job. And so what I ended up doing was as the business coaching grew, I was able to step down to different companies and different roles that were smaller and smaller. And because the income was the same, I was just getting it out of two different buckets at that time.
Mhm.
But then about a year and a half later, I was able to fully go into my online business. And my husband was so cute. He's, okay, this is really exciting. Let's see where you are in 6 months. And he didn't mean it the way it sounded. I took it like, oh, let's see where you are in 6 months. And I was like flipping my hair going, okay, sir, watch me. Here. That's not what he meant. But anyway, it was pretty funny. But here I am. It evolved from where I started is not where I am now. And I think that's really important for your listeners to hear, especially if they're starting out or they want to start a business. Where you start is not always where you're going to evolve to. And so I just really needed to get started. And I started with people here locally that knew me. They knew my track record. They knew how good I was in business. And in large part, they came from the real estate industry because that's the jobs that I had. A lot of realtors hired me to help them build their book, have an email list, retain more clients with that email list, close more deals with their sales verbiage and things. So it's been exciting.
That's fascinating because it's really true what you're saying about where you start's not necessarily where you end up. Because I worked with a lot of people and almost invariably that's the case. Because you start doing something and then whether it's successful or not, pretty soon you get to the point where you're going, it's boring. I'm not really into this, or that's not exactly where I want to go. But that's the beautiful thing about entrepreneurship is that you get to change. You get to mold your path by what you do, by the actions that you take. And I think that's fascinating. I had to smile too about your story about your husband. It's so true. Our partners, the people in our lives, they can really make a difference because unfortunately, some people's partners don't support what they're doing.
So hard. Yeah. I've worked with some clients whose husbands are not on board, and it just makes it that much more difficult for them to even have success because they're so worried about the money and did they make any money? And they're scared that he's going to ask, did you make any money? And then they're going to have to say no. And then when it's just, yeah. So when I have a client whose husband is on board or spouse is on board, I'm like, man, that's a blessing. Be happy but I knew for me, Trudy, at first I had an all or nothing mentality about the corporate job and the online business. I was like, well, I have to quit the corporate job if I'm going to build this business. No. It dawned on me, I was driving down the road one day and I'm like, Tracy Beavers, you're a highly educated woman. Why didn't you figure this out sooner? You can do both. What the heck? And then I reminded myself, okay, if I get full-time into the online coaching and I end up hating it or I end up stinking at it and making no money, I can always go back and get another job. So I had all this stuff going on inside me that it was like, no, you've got to do the corporate job or you've got to do the coaching. And that just wasn't true. And so I think we all need to figure out our way of making it happen. And I knew that building it alongside my corporate job was going to bring comfort to my family.
Yes.
Because one of the things my husband said to me was, he said, honey, I know you'll be successful. I know you'll be good at this, but I do not want to derail our retirement. We have worked so hard to stay on track to be able to fully be funded by a certain age. And I'm 55. And he made a really good point. And I didn't want to derail that either. So thankfully, he was on board with a few caveats, and the kids were like, okay, hold on. How much sacrifice am I going to have to make? That was pretty funny. I was like, look, you're not going to be eating mayonnaise sandwiches. You'll be fine. It'll be fine.
Noodles. Yeah.
Ramen noodles. Yeah.
Ramen noodles. Exactly. Because they need that for university. So I do have a question, because I know that some of my listeners will be asking this question. So I'm thinking about people who are in a much younger age bracket and place in their life where maybe they're at university and they need some part-time income, or they need something that they can do that's going to bring in a bit of cash, or they might be a young parent or whatever. You were able to step into this new business, this new way of making your money, making a living, based off of the skill sets that you developed over a 25-year career. Any advice for people who might be going, I haven't finished university yet. I don't have masses and masses of experience. What might they be able to do that would help them get started?
Oh, that's a great question. And I do have 2 kids in my life that I love very much that are college. So now, obviously, we love our oldest daughter, but I'm talking about our son and his longtime girlfriend. They are both finishing up college. They're both in their senior year. So I know exactly who you're speaking about. So our son got started with me because I had a podcast on my list of things to accomplish and do for years before I was actually able to do it. And the thing that was holding me back, Trudy, was the tech piece. Tech is not my love language, not at all. And I thought, if I've got to edit a video, if I've got to edit an audio, it's going to end up sounding like crap. Nobody's going to want to listen. I was just talking myself out of it. And last summer I said, hey, I want to do a podcast. Will you be my podcast manager? And he kind of looked at me and he goes, what is that? And what do you want me to do? And I was like, I want you to edit my stuff and make it sound good. He goes, okay. He goes, what do I need to do? I said, you need to learn to script. He goes, okay. So I paid somebody. Okay, so this is so funny. This is the biggest difference between our brains. Mine's 55 years old. His is 22 years old. Big difference. So I paid somebody for an hour of their time to teach me to script, recorded it, all that. They gave me frameworks. They gave me step-by-step, the whole thing. I give it to Jack. He didn't even need it. 15 minutes later, it took me 2 weeks to learn to script. 15 minutes later, literally, he goes, hey, Mom, what do you think about this final compilation? And I went, did you even listen to the Zoom video? He goes, I didn't need to. You just push these buttons and you put the stuff together and then and I'm like, oh my God, okay, you're hired. So that's how he got started but in that same scenario, if you didn't have a mom that paid somebody to then teach you how to do it, go to YouTube and look up how to learn Descript. Go to Descript's website and do their tutorials. So that's a great way to get started, because there are a lot of podcasters out there like me that do not love tech. And this is all Jack does, is he takes my cold open, my intro, my episode, my outro, stitches it together, throws it over into Buzzsprout, and makes sure it goes through. And then he'll go onto my YouTube channel and he'll add, what do they call those things? Timestamps into the video there. And he also has been able to pick up another job working for a podcast agency when they have overflow. So that's a great way to get your feet wet. So you got to think through, what am I good at? Like, Jack's really good at tech stuff, and he loves podcasts and he loves movies. So that was up his alley. His girlfriend, she loves social media, and she's really good at social media. And so she was hired as an intern for a local nonprofit one summer when she was home. She did all of their social media. She taught herself how to use CapCut. She taught herself how to edit videos, and she did an amazing job. But once again, she has that 22-year-old brain that can do anything in 15 minutes. But she taught herself, and she also taught herself Canva by watching YouTube videos. So those are 2 really great examples of, you don't need to necessarily pay somebody to get started. You don't have to pay for a certification or buy a course or anything to learn. You can go on to YouTube. You can use ChatGPT to help you and learn the basics of it and then offer it out to people. Maybe work for a couple of people for free, just for a little bit, to get your feet wet, to get a portfolio together, to get your skills nailed down, and then go out there and let people know you're available. Because I have clients and students asking me all the time, who can I hire for my social media? Who can I hire for my podcast editing? Who's a good video editor? Who's good with a camera? Do you know anybody that would do some photography for me in the local area? Those are great things for college kids to do.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. Absolutely. And maybe not even just college kids. If you're somebody who can only work part-time and on your business part-time and you need to develop some skills. One of the brilliant things that I've learned over the years is that as people build their business, they're starting from scratch, from zero. As they build their business, there's a really high chance that they'll fall in love with something that's part of that business building thing. And they end up getting so good at it that they end up flipping their business, changing it completely and focusing on that, which is really interesting. And I'm curious, actually, as you've gone through your journey and you've learned the skills and you started coaching people and you started working with them, you've refined your skill set around, based off of the experience that you had, but also newly built experience around coaching into that whole visibility thing. Because, and I'll just confess something here, when I first started out, I was a little bit shy about putting my name and my face out there. I did it because I knew I had to do it. But at the same time, I couldn't see so much the value of visibility. And now, of course, I know 10 years later that if you're not visible, if nobody knows who you are, you don't have a business.
Exactly.
So can you focus a little bit on the visibility side? Maybe talk a little bit about, from your perspective, why it's so important. And then I'd like us to get into a little bit some tips. Maybe if you could share some tips with us about how to go about that whole visibility part of things.
It can be a hurdle for a lot of people. I'm an extrovert. I've spoken on stages. I love to teach. I love to talk to people. So being visible, I'm fine with it. I'm the person that if I'm walking across the stage and I trip, I just am like, make a joke out of it. I keep going. I deliver my speech. Everything's fine. But the vast majority of people are not like me. They care more than I do, I guess people think. But yeah, so it can be that. I love what you said about when I first started out, I didn't want to put my name in lights. Here's what it feels like when we enter the online space. And my students laugh every time I say this. It feels like we are standing on the side of the interstate, naked, holding a sign that says, look at me, look at me. But that's not what it is. Because when you're in the online space on social media, we need social media. We need content. We need the favor of the algorithm. Do we need to be on it 7 days a week? Absolutely not. Do we need to be on every single platform to have success? Absolutely not. I'm a prime example. When I was building alongside my corporate job, I had time for Facebook. That was it. Instagram, I knew nothing about. I stayed away from it. I'm only on it now because I have an assistant. Otherwise, I'd shut the whole thing down. I still don't get it. LinkedIn back then was a place you went to go get recruited for a job. It's not what it is now. So Facebook was my jam. I did not have time to be on that platform 7 days a week. I did not have time to create 7 days of content for my new free Facebook group that I wanted to have. So what we need to do is decide what platform we want to be on. Where do we feel most authentic and where are our clients? Vast majority of them are on Facebook. Unless you're doing something like career coaching or executive coaching or something with corporations, then LinkedIn needs to be your primary, for sure. But then you decide, okay, what's my comfort zone on my regular piece of weekly content? Do you want to do a live video? If you're on the shy side, probably not. That might make you pass out. Do you want to do a podcast? That might be a lot easier, even if it's because it's audio only. Or do you want to do a blog? Now, a blog is a little bit heavier lift because you've got to take the time to write it. Even with AI, it helps, but it still needs to come from you, and it has to be SEO keyword rich, and it has to have the H1, the H2, the blah, blah, blah. So there's a lot of pieces to it. So we need to decide that. But I love what you said about, I knew I needed to do it, so I did it because I knew that I needed to do it for my success. And I think part of being a serious CEO is, are we willing to do the things that make us uncomfortable to get what we want and have the business that we want and the income that we want? And that's where the rubber meets the road. That's just a little tough love statement. I do not love everything I have to do in my business. I don't want to do the tech. I don't love, believe it or not, I do not love writing out what my live training and episode's going to be week in, week out. Sometimes I'm like, God, I just like to take a break. But I have to say to myself, Tracy Beavers, you are a serious CEO. You are building this business so you never have to return to corporate. Put on your CEO pants, hold your nose, and get it over with. And that week, the work that I do might be B+ work, but I'm going to put it out there. And so we do have to decide, even if someone that's listening is massively introverted, we do need to decide a way, a pathway for them to have the success that's authentic to them, but to push themselves a little bit, to do some of the things that are necessary. Because if you're going to have an online business, you've got to be visible. You're not going to make any money. People can't buy what they can't see.
Exactly. And that is the thing that I think is hardest for people to realize, because a lot of people, they want to start a business. Sometimes it's changing a hobby into a business, or it's taking things that they like to do and they're just dabbling their feet in the water still, and they don't necessarily have that sense of themselves as a CEO. They're still a creative or somebody who's got some skills, and they're still testing the waters, and they still don't quite believe in themselves as being a business owner, if you want to just to call it what it is. And so just that whole, you need to feel the fear and do it anyway.
Yeah,
You have to do it anyway. But I'm a little bit curious. I want to talk a little bit more about the visibility side of things. So when we're talking about visibility, we're talking about making sure that people who don't know us have a way of finding out about us so that they can decide and see whether or not we can help them with the problems and challenges that they face. And there's so many different ways of doing that. We talked about social media. We talked about Facebook, LinkedIn, and there's so many. There's YouTube. There's TikTok. Just out of curiosity, do you use TikTok at all, or do you play on it?
The reason I'm laughing is because a couple of years ago, I thought, I'm going to try TikTok. And oh my gosh, do you know how long it would take me to make one of those videos? It would take me 2 hours to do one short form thing. And I finally got to the point where I was so sick of it. I messaged my assistant and I said, I'm never making another reel again in the rest of my life. And she was like, what are we going to do? And I was like, I don't know. Is there a software program that can slice and dice my big video for us? And she goes, let me do some research. So that's when we found Opus Clip. I was like, praise Jesus for Opus Clip, because I was not going to make another reel. But yeah, so I was on TikTok for a while, and I go back and I need to take that down, because it is just ridiculous. I am way too old to be doing the things I was doing on TikTok. I don't know what I was thinking. I really don't.
I think it's interesting and the reason I'm asking is because I like trying new things, new business models, checking them out. Do they work? Personality and business, do they fit? And so I've been doing a little bit of work with TikTok just to get a sense of what's possible with it. And I'm still in the really embryonic early stages, because there's a bit of a hiccup at the beginning, and then I went on holiday. But I'm just getting back into it, and it's really interesting seeing what's there and then looking at the data and realizing that there's a lot of people our age on TikTok doing stuff that matters, and it's not dancing.
Thank God.
You don't want to see me dancing on TikTok. That's true. But it has a reputation for just being for dancing teenagers. That's so not what it really is. Yeah, there's a sense on there, but there's also a lot of business focused stuff, which is really interesting. So I thought that was interesting. So the visibility, there's a whole world out there of many different things and ways of being visible. Right. And you hit the nail on the head when you said video. You might rather poke yourself in the eye than have to check this on video. But when it comes to the visibility side of things, let's just take a hypothetical person who's they're getting started. Let's say they're in their 40s, early 40s or something, and maybe they've got middle school aged kids, maybe a few older teenagers, and their business is just starting to pick up. They're starting to feel like they're getting their head around what it's all about, and they know that they have to actually become more visible. What would be some of the things that they could do to actually go, if I did this and this and this, that would help me become more visible? What do they need? What could they do?
Oh, there's so many things. And I have over 10 strategies that I teach in my group coaching programs, and there's way more than that. So I would ask that person, what feels good to them? So I have a one-to-one client right now who does not love social media. She knows she needs to be on it. She does not want to go live on there. She started a free Facebook group. She still has it. She still likes that. She does not like being visible in other people's Facebook groups, which is a strategy that I teach. This doesn't feel good. I don't want to do this. I said, okay, cool. Park it. Just put it on the shelf. We'll find something else. She said, I think I really want to be a guest on podcasts. And I think I really want to be a guest speaker in summits. And I think I really want to do some in-person workshops. And I said, brilliant. Those are all visibility strategies. So I would ask that person, what do you like to do? Now, we do want to create, let me rewind a little bit. There is a foundational piece to visibility in the online space, and that's content. So we do need to create enough content to be consistent week in, week out, to get the favor of the algorithm, to get the opportunity for our audience to see us, hear us, hire us, and make that connection. But it does not have to be 7 days a week, and it does not have to be on every platform, and you do not have to dance. That's the good news. But I would say, let's pick what do you want to do every week, or at least twice a month, that delivers value to your ideal clients, whether that's a live video, podcast, or a blog. And then from that, and with AI now, it gets easier. This is an exercise I'm going to walk you through that I created myself to keep my sanity building alongside my corporate job. I knew I wanted to go live. That was the easiest thing for me to do because there was hardly any tech required. You just push a button and you talk. Super easy. So I decided to do that every week. So I would make sure that I had my notes about what I wanted to say. Then I would write a couple of social media posts based on that training that I was delivering. So if I had, like, for example, if I was going live and I was giving 4 tips, I could write one social media post with 2 of those tips, another social media post with the other 2 tips. That gave me 2 social media posts for the week. So now I've got my live, that's a post. And then I've got 2 other things that I'm going to post. Now I've got 3 things I can post for the week. And that's really all you need. But once you get some free lead magnets, you post those. So let's say you throw in a lead magnet and you throw in a podcast episode that you were a guest on. Look, now you've got 5 things, but you only created 1, which was the notes for the training that you want to deliver. But that way, they have enough content without exhausting themselves to be on the platform where people can start to know their name. And then from there, we look at, do you want to be a guest? Do you want to have your own podcast? Do you want to be in summits? Do you want to be in bundles? That's great visibility, especially for introverts, because bundles is just a bundle of free or low cost or sometimes high ticket paid things that people go together and bundle up to then promote to their audiences. You get list growth, you get visibility, you get audience growth from that, and you don't have to talk to anybody, and you certainly don't have to dance. But there's lots of different ways to get visibility. We just need to figure out what kind of business do they have, where is their audience, and what feels good to them. Because if it doesn't feel good, we're not going to do it.
Yeah.
We're just not going to do it.
So I got a question for you, because when I first got started, and even for a long time, there was the gurus basically said, you got to be everywhere. You got everywhere doing everything. And I don't know a quicker route to burnout than that. So when you're working with your clients, what do you say to them in terms of choosing how many things to be on? Because you could do combinations that work really nicely together, or you could just focus on one. So what's your thinking on that?
Well, we need to figure out where their audience is. So if their audience truly is on Instagram, then that's what I would recommend. And when you connect your Instagram with your Facebook business page, you get a 2-for-1 there, because every time you post on Instagram, it drops right into the Facebook business page. So you get content in your Facebook business page and you don't even have to think about it. So there are ways to figure out how to be on more than one platform at a time. One of my clients uses an app called Metricool. It's a scheduling tool. Because we were going through we just started together, had our first session yesterday. I've known her for a long time. And I was looking at the platform she was on, and she said, I use Metricool, and I post to my Facebook business page, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, and Pinterest on there. And I said, does that feel okay to you? And it's cool because I just schedule it out and it does all the places all at one time. So there are ways now of being in all the places, but I still don't think you need to. I don't know if I answered your question or not. I think I went off in a different direction. Sorry, Trudy.
No, that's okay, because different people have different ideas about what you do. And I guess, and I've used Metricool myself in the past, but it's almost more along the lines of you want to do just enough so that it works.
Yes.
But not so much that you feel like you're drowning.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, there's a balance. And there is an argument for everything in the online space, and it's maddening. There are people who say you have to be on all the platforms, and there's people like me who say you don't. There are people that say, oh my gosh, if you don't run paid ads, your business is never going to be successful. And then you're going to meet people like me who are the prime example poster child for somebody who grew a multi-six-figure business without paid ads. You're going to find people that say, oh, you need about 10 or 12 free lead magnets. And then you're going to find people like me who are like, no, you don't. And when you're just starting out and you're trying to figure out, and especially if it's the big people, the gurus that are saying things, people think that, oh, they must know. Maybe they're making more money than I am, but I don't know that I don't know. I don't know that they know.
Not to mention the fact that they've got a team who can help do it all for them. And yeah, I still think that too many people think they've got to be there everywhere, but they don't pay attention to the analytics. And when you look at the analytics, you can tell that some of the stuff that you're posting on some of the channels or systems that you're using, they're just not getting a return.
And to your point, a lot of people get caught up in vanity numbers.
Oh, yeah. Talk a little bit more about that. Sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no. Yeah, totally. I had a client who came to me. She had about 600,000 followers on Instagram, and she was creating a YouTube channel. And within a couple of weeks of that YouTube channel, she had 100,000 subscribers. She was making no money. She had no email list. She was not putting her offers out there. And truly, I do not think that I think a small fraction of those people were actually her ideal clients. And also, I'm a prime example of somebody who does not have a following like that. But yet, I have a business that makes well over six figures every single year. My profit margin is well over 40 to 50% every single year, which is also really important because, yeah, you could be making $1 million, but what are your expenses? And is your marriage healthy? And are your kids talking to you? You know what I mean? Like, I was listening to a podcast the other day where a gal was talking about, yeah, I hit seven figures. And you know what I found out as I was sitting in the bathroom floor crying? That my marriage was over and my kids hated me. And I was like, wow, the quantity versus quality issue. We get caught up in the vanity metrics, just like you're saying with your analytics. Okay, cool. You might have a reel that goes viral. That's so fun. But did it make you any money? No? Okay, which one do you want? Do you want to be an influencer and famous and have people know your name? Or do you want to bring home money for your family? And I would rather have the money for my family. So that's a little frustrating. My email list people think is huge. It's not. It hovers between 3,500 and 4,500 or so people, depending on how often I'm scrubbing it. On Instagram, I think I have 4,000 followers. I'm not sure because I'm not really over there to pay attention. But the other thing is with those analytics that came to mind, are the analytics and the things that you're doing well converting into buyers?
Yes.
That's where the rubber meets the road. If your social media content is growing your email list and you have people you're converting from your email list into a buyer, or because of your social media content, you're getting into the DMs and you're having conversations with people and it's converting into either them being a client or them being a collaboration partner or converting into business growth in some way, then knock yourself out and get 1 million followers. But if you're not paying attention to the people that are literally raising their hand wanting to be a part of your world, you're missing out on money.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's a really important point that often gets just missed out of the conversation altogether. I want to sort of circle back a little bit because we've covered a lot over just the last few minutes. So we started out by talking about how content is a really foundational part of getting visibility and making sure people know that you actually exist. And of course, you want to provide content that's helpful for people just straight out the gate. And we've talked a little bit about how you can turn one piece of content into multiple. It's called repurposing for our listeners. Right. It's called repurposing content. And it fits really nicely into one of the frameworks that I use, which is just the flywheel mechanism, where every time you post a piece of content and spreads out and becomes more content, which attracts more people to your list, and you build your list and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. That's just part and parcel. But once you get to this, and I want to bring this back into what you just said, which is that none of that matters if people aren't buying from you. So
Right.
let's take our hypothetical person where they figured out where they want, what kind of content they want to create. They figured out how that helps their audience. They know where they're posting it, and they're doing that, and they're making sure that it's designed in such a way that it builds their email list, because that's another thing that people forget about. Without an email list, you're just renting.
Yeah.
You need that email list. That's your asset. The email list is your asset. And so now you've got people coming onto your email list, and then hopefully these people are writing newsletters and reaching out on a regular basis to their list. What's the next step after that? Because now we're starting to talk about relationships, building relationships, because they've gone from cold to social media warm to email list warm. Where does it go from there?
With regard to the email list, we want to make sure that not only are we writing to our audience regularly, providing value, entertainment, fun, giving a little bit of yourself here and there, but also sharing your offers with them. Because if they don't know about it, they can't buy it. So I had a student who said, I've got this $97 offer, but nobody's buying it. And I said, tell me how you're marketing it. I just put it out on social media a couple of times and nobody bought it. And I said, tell me about your email list. And she said, I have 2,500 people on my email list. I said, are they fairly warm? What's your open rate? She said, yeah, they are 60% open rate. I said, oh, my stars. That's amazing. I said, did you email your list about this $97 offer? She goes, no. And I said, okay. I go, here's what we're going to do. I said, in the next 48 hours, I want you emailing your list about your offer. And then I want you to email them it again next week. And then you let me know what happened. She made $2,500.
Yes. Just like that.
They didn't know. They can't buy what they can't see. So with regard to your list, you want to be sure that you're sharing with them what you do and what your expertise is. And also coming up with fun ways to get them to reply back to you, because that helps your email deliverability, but also gives you an opportunity to have a further conversation with them.
Yes.
And then on the other place we can have conversations is in the DMs, which I know scares the heck out of a lot of people because they feel like they've got to be weird. They're afraid people are going to think they're spammy, salesy. Make up your own adjective.
Stalking.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. But here's what I will say. If you and I are in the same group, LinkedIn group, Facebook group, even if we're on Circle or Mighty Networks or Heartbeat in a community, you can still send a DM there. So it's not, to me, it's not weird to reach out and go, hey, Trudy, it's Tracy from the XYZ group. Just joined, or I've been in it for a long time. How about you? Hope it's okay to send you this DM. And you end it in a question mark. Because anytime you end it in a question mark, it prompts their brain to want to reply back. And so you're more likely to get a reply than if you just made a statement. Hey, Trudy, it's Tracy. We're both in the XYZ group, period. You're going to read that and go, cool, I don't need to reply back to that. So then you're going to reply back. And what we want to do is we want to have a conversation that is just if you and I were in person. If you and I were in a group together, and let's say I saw you at the Chamber of Commerce lunch, and then you and I are at the local coffee shop, it would be weird if I didn't walk up and go, hey, Trudy, so to see you at the Chamber thing, and now we're both here at the coffee shop. That's totally normal.
Yes.
But we get into the online space and we get into the DMs and we're like, what do I say? And I'm like, you say exactly what you would say if that human being was right in front of you. But our brain thinks it's different. Our brain thinks the conversation needs to be different, and it doesn't. It needs to be the same. We need to be more careful about the words we choose and use emojis to help convey the emotion and the actual intent of the message. Because the problem with flat words on a page is that the person that's receiving it is going to read it in the mood that they're in. So if Trudy is having a really crap day and I send her a message and I don't have a heart emoji on it or a laughing face or something like that, she may read it and go, the heck is this Tracy girl trying to... So we just have to be really careful to try to overcome that part, or use an audio DM where you can clearly hear my voice and the intent of the message. But our brain thinks it's different. And it's not a different message. It's the location of the conversation that has changed that makes our brain pause and say, this is weird. Whether we're in person or we're in the DMs, the conversation has changed. Doesn't matter that the location of the conversation is different. So people that comment on where I was going with this is people that like, heart, or comment on your social media, they need to get a DM. Trudy, thank you so much for liking my post all about how to navigate people's free Facebook groups. How are things where you are? Like, tell me about your business. Hope it's okay that I DM'd you. Tell me about your business. I'd love to connect. That's not weird.
Yeah,
and if the person you sent it to thinks it's weird, then that person's not your person. I've had people tell me that before. They're like, what are you trying to sell me? And I'm like, I'm not trying to sell you anything, ding dong. I'm trying to network and make a connection. But I'm not going to be for everybody. If you get that response, it's okay. Keep going. But yeah, we have to use our social media content that people have, because when they heart or comment, they are literally raising their hand and saying, I like you. I like what you just did. And that's an opportunity for us to connect further. Maybe they want to be a client. Maybe they don't. Maybe they want to be a collaboration partner. Maybe they don't. Maybe they know somebody that needs you and can refer you to somebody. Maybe they don't. We never know where it's going to lead, but we have to use that content that we took so much time and effort to make for this extent, to not only grow our email list, but to have those conversations.
Yeah, I think that's so important because it's just so easy to skim right over the likes and the hearts. You have to comment, it's easy. It's the liking, the hearting that it's like, and there's this, I'll just put it on me, but I know other people feel the same way that I do. And that is, I don't want to develop a fake relationship.
No.
I want to make sure that if I'm going to spend the time and effort to build a relationship, it's a genuine relationship. It's going to be helpful to the other person.
Yes.
If there's things about what they're doing that can help me, that's wonderful too.
Right.
But it's not about selling them something or them selling me something. It's about who are you as a person? How are you going? What are you trying to achieve in life as your family, and keeping it genuine and real. And I think in this day and age of AI, that's so important. So I like what you're saying about how to take it from what feels like almost a closed door or a heart or something. Oh, that's nice and sweet, but there's no words there to go by. So turning that around and going, okay, I'm going to take the initiative here, and I'm going to take what you've indicated, one of those signals that get sent, and just going and taking it further. That's really cool. Tracy, it's been really lovely speaking with you. I've enjoyed our conversation, and I know based on some of the stuff that we've talked about and talking to you just before we started recording as well, that you've got much more in-depth stuff that you can share with people about this particular thing that I know is a big barrier for a lot of people who are trying to grow their business. You want to just talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So the best place for people to find me is through my podcast. It's called Create Online Business Success. And I have lots more tips to share and do go in depth a little bit more on some of the strategies that I teach. Also, a great place to go a little bit more in depth with me would be my free Facebook group. It's called Be a Confident Entrepreneur. Get visible, grow your email list and your income. Lots of free resources in there as well. But yeah, there's a lot more we could talk about. We could be here all day, True.
Absolutely, we could too. And I noticed on your website that you have a free giveaway that answers some of these questions that we've been talking about.
Oh, yes. What you're seeing is a live masterclass because so we have a couple of different free resources based on some of the things you and I talked about today. One would be if they go to tracybeavers.com/social, they're going to get my Social Media Made Easy guide, which literally walks them through what I was mentioning that I developed when I was building alongside my corporate job about building the one piece of content and then repurposing it into everything else you need. It's going to walk them through how to do that. And it's also going to walk them through how to map out 90 days of social media content topics in only 30 minutes so that every week they have something they could talk about. And they're not struggling to figure out, what am I going to say this week? You just look at your topic that you wrote out and there you have it. And then the other resource that they would love is direct DM conversations, how to have them, how to get over your fear of them. And that would be tracybeavers.com/DM. And they'll get a free resource there as well.
Fantastic. No, that's really great because I know people will find that really useful.
Thanks.
Once again, thank you so much. It's just been fun talking with you.
Yes, I've loved it. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Fantastic.
If your idea of visibility feels more like standing on a highway in your undies than confidently claiming your space online, Tracy has just showed you that there's another way. Whether it's choosing one platform, mastering simple content repurposing, or learning how to start non-weird conversations in the DMs, the key is building a system that fits you. And if this episode gave you an aha moment, do me a favor, hit subscribe and leave a review. It really, really does help others find the podcast and grow their own online businesses too. And hey, remember, I've got a newsletter filled with tips for building the online side of your business. Head over to onlinebusinessliftoff.com/newsletter to get practical strategies delivered straight to your inbox. That's onlinebusinessliftoff.com/newsletter, and I also include stories in that.